Look, there are some things the galactic medical community just doesn't understand about humans, like how we can temporarily stop someone's heart and bring them back to life, or how we literally drill holes in people's skulls to relieve pressure, or my personal favorite, why we occasionally have to break someone's ribs to save their life. I'm Dr. Patrick Mackenzie, but everyone calls me Patch. Yes, like that movie about the crazy doctor who wore a clown nose. No, I don't wear a clown nose, most of the time. I'm the only human emergency medic stationed on Galactic Medical Station Theta 9. And let me tell you, it's an interesting gig. The station orbits a busy trading hub about 30 light-years from Earth, which means we get all sorts of interesting cases. And by interesting, I mean the kind of stuff that makes our alien colleagues reach for their anxiety medication. See, most species evolved on nice, safe worlds where the worst injury you might get is a paper cut from signing too many medical forms. They're not used to dealing with beings like humans who come from what they call a death world. That's right, Earth is classified as a Class 12 death planet. Apparently having to dodge everything from lightning strikes to angry geese makes us particularly hardy and creative when it comes to emergency medicine. Dr. Mackenzie, your methods are absolutely barbaric. Dr. Vexithorax likes to remind me at least twice per shift. Vex is our medical director, a tall, spindly being from a low-gravity world who looks like a cross between a praying mantis and a very disappointed librarian. They're brilliant at their job, but their idea of emergency medicine involves a lot of standing around and waiting for the automated systems to kick in. Barbaric but effective, I always reply, usually while doing something that makes them click their mandibles in distress. Like that time I used a pen casing as an emergency airway. Or when I fashioned a splint out of spare parts from the maintenance closet. The maintenance bots still hide whenever they see me coming. At least Kit T7, our resident robotic nurse, appreciates my improvisation skills. Kit is technically a medical assistance android Mark 7, but they've developed quite the personality after spending time around humans. They're also the only one on staff who doesn't flinch when I break out the primitive human medical techniques. Fascinating adaptation of non-medical materials for emergency intervention, they'll say, their optical sensors whirring as they record everything for their personal database. Though perhaps we should requisition actual medical supplies instead of raiding the cafeteria. It was just another typical day on Theta 9. Vex was updating protocols, Kit was organizing supplies, and I was trying to explain to our newest intern why humans sometimes use superglue to close wounds. That's when the emergency alert started blaring and everything went sideways. Little did I know this was going to be the day that changed how the entire galactic medical community viewed human emergency medicine. But first, we had to survive what was coming through those emergency bay doors. The emergency alert was the fancy kind, the one with the extra loud klaxon that means multiple casualties incoming. And yes, this is going to ruin everyone's lunch break. Structural collapse on mining station Delta 3, Kit announced, their vocal processors somehow managing to sound both excited and concerned. Multiple species affected. Estimated arrival in 3 minutes. Vex's antennae went rigid, never a good sign. How many casualties? 12 critical, 15 walking wounded. Primary injuries include crushing trauma, atmospheric exposure, and... Kit paused, their optical sensors flickering. Oh dear, someone apparently tried to stop an industrial cargo loader with their body. I was already grabbing supplies while Vex started their usual protocol speech. Remember, all treatment must follow standard galactic medical procedures. Section 47, subsection. The first casualties arrived before they could finish. The emergency bay doors whooshed open, and chaos poured in. First through the door was a Zentaran with what looked like half a cargo container embedded in their exoskeleton. Behind them, 2 Mrexians clutching their pressure suits closed where something had torn through them. And bringing up the rear, oh joy, a human mining engineer, who'd apparently decided to test Newton's laws of motion against industrial equipment. Right, I said, already moving toward the human while the alien medical staff hovered uncertainly around their automated diagnostic systems. Kit, with me. Vex, you might want to see this. You're about to learn why humans keep practicing medicine like it's still the 20th century. The human engineer, his name tag read Rodriguez, was in rough shape. The cargo loader had won their argument, leaving him with a crushed leg, multiple fractures, and the kind of internal bleeding that makes emergency doctors reach for the good drugs. "What are you doing?" Vex clicked in horror as I pulled out a tourniquet. "The medical pods will be ready in approximately 47 minutes. "He'll be dead in 10, I interrupted, already wrapping the tourniquet around Rodriguez's leg. "Kit, I need pressure bandages, a chest seal, and something I can use as a pelvic binder." "The cleaning drone's power belt would work admirably," Kit suggested, already zipping off to terrorize the maintenance department again. "You can't just," Vex began, but then stopped as Rodriguez's vitals actually started to stabilize. Their antennae twitched in what I'd learned to recognize as confused interest. That primitive pressure device is working. Tourniquet's been saving lives since the Roman Empire. I gestured to where the Marxians were still waiting for treatment. "Now want to learn how humans deal with suit breaches using nothing but plastic and tape?" Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly, their version of a resigned sigh. "I will observe, for purely academic purposes, and to document all violations of standard procedure." "That's the spirit," I grinned, already reaching for the chest seals. "Kit, bring the camera. This is going to be educational." Behind us, Rodriguez managed to give a weak thumbs up. "Hey, Doc, think this'll get me workers' comp?" "Attempting high-velocity interaction with cargo machinery is not covered under standard insurance protocols," Kit informed him cheerfully while recording everything. "But I believe getting crushed while heroically saving 3 co-workers might be—" "Nice save," I whispered to Kit as we moved to the next patient. "Now who wants to learn about the magic of pressure bandages and improvised splints?" The look of horror on Vex's face suggested this was going to be a very interesting shift indeed. And we weren't even halfway through the casualties yet. There's something beautiful about organized chaos, like watching a juggler keep chainsaws in the air, or seeing a short-order cook during the lunch rush. Or in this case, watching an emergency department handle multiple trauma cases, while an alien medical director has an existential crisis. "But that's not in any of the manuals." Vex was practically vibrating as I improvised a chest seal for one of the Marxians, using what was technically supposed to be food packaging material. "The molecular structure of that adhesive hasn't been approved for medical use in 17 star systems." "Neither has my coffee, but it's saving lives today too," I replied, checking the seal's effectiveness. The Marxian's breathing was already improving. "Kit, how's our friend with the cargo container accessory doing?" Kit was hovering over the Zentaran, their diagnostic sensors whirring overtime. "Patient is stable, but concerned about the aesthetic implications of removing the container. Apparently, it matches their carapace color scheme." "Tell them embedded industrial equipment is so last season," I called back, already moving to my next patient. "And get me something I can use as a spinal board." "Would the cafeteria serving tray suffice?" Kit asked, somehow managing to sound both helpful and mischievous. "Perfect. Sterilize it, and Vex, are you taking notes?" The medical director froze, hastily tucking away a datapad. "Merely documenting violations for the incident report." And the diagrams you're drawing?" "Theoretical analysis of primitive medical techniques, for research purposes only." A new alarm started blaring because apparently we needed more excitement. One of the less injured miners had decided that their minor suit breach wasn't worth mentioning. They'd managed to walk in under their own power, collapse in the waiting area, and develop the kind of tension pneumothorax that makes emergency doctors both excited and nervous. "Right," I said, grabbing supplies. "Who wants to learn about needle decompression?" The entire alien medical staff took 3 steps back. Kit zoomed forward, camera ready. Vex made a sound like someone stepping on a mechanical keyboard. "You can't possibly be suggesting—" "Already doing it," I replied, needle in hand. "Kit, want to explain to everyone why we're about to stick a very large needle into someone's chest?" "With pleasure." Kit's educational programming kicked in with enthusiasm. When a patient experiences a tension pneumothorax, the increasing pressure in the pleural space can cause cardiovascular collapse. By inserting a needle at the correct location, we can— "That is a maintenance tool," Vex interrupted, pointing at the needle I was using. "Correction," Kit chimed in. "That was a maintenance tool. It has been promoted to medical equipment through the human tradition of making do." The needle did its job perfectly. Our patient's color improved immediately, and their vital signs stabilized. I caught Vex making another sketch on their data pad. "You know," they said slowly, mandibles clicking thoughtfully, "there might be some merit in maintaining certain primitive tools for research purposes." "Speaking of primitive tools," Kit announced, "the Zenterans' condition requires immediate intervention, but they're still concerned about the fashion implications. Tell them embedded cargo container parts are totally in this season," I sighed, heading over, "but only if they're properly aligned with their respiratory structures, which this one definitely isn't." "I'll add fashion consultant to your list of medical qualifications," Kit noted, following close behind, right after improvised medical equipment engineer and cause of Vex's increasing blood pressure. Behind us, I could hear Vex muttering something about updating the station's emergency protocols. Progress, I thought. Chaotic, improvisational, probably giving the medical board a collective aneurysm progress. And we still had 8 more critical patients to go. At this rate, we might even run out of cafeteria supplies to repurpose. "Kit," I called out, "how attached are the maintenance bots to their spare parts?" The look of horror on Vex's face suggested I might be pushing my luck. But then again, pushing luck is what human emergency medicine is all about. They say there's a moment in every emergency when things either come together or fall apart. For us, that moment arrived with the last critical patient, a Proximan engineer who'd been trapped under debris long enough for their 3 hearts to develop some very interesting arrhythmias. "All emergency pods are occupied," Kit reported, their usual cheerful tone edged with concern. "Estimated wait time, 23 minutes. Patient will experience complete cardiovascular collapse in approximately 7 minutes, Vex added, antennae drooping. "Without a pod, the standard protocols—" "Standard protocols can kiss my caffeine-deprived behind," I interrupted, already pulling supplies from various corners of the emergency department. "Kit, remember that broken defibrillator we were supposed to send for recycling? The one you insisted on keeping for parts despite 17 violation notices, currently located under your desk, disguised as modern art." "That's the one. Bring it here, Vex. Want to see something really primitive." The medical director's optical processors widened. "You're not seriously planning to—" "Restart 3 hearts using repurposed medical equipment and about 6 different violations of standard safety protocols? Absolutely." I grinned, accepting the defibrillator from Kit. "Want to help?" Here's the thing about Vex, beneath all that protocol and procedure beats the heart of a true medical professional. They hesitated for exactly 2.3 seconds before grabbing a pair of sterile manipulators. "This is completely unauthorized," they noted, already helping me modify the defibrillator. "The paperwork will be unprecedented." "I'll help you invent new forms," Kit offered, recording everything. "We can call it the Human Emergency Innovation Documentation Series, HIDES for short." The next 5 minutes were a blur of activity that probably violated every safety regulation in the galaxy. We modified the defibrillator to handle triple cardiac output, used parts from 2 different medical scanners to create a makeshift monitoring system, and may have slightly reprogrammed Kit's auxiliary power supply. "Ready?" I asked, charging the jury-rigged system. "No," Vex replied honestly, "but the patient has approximately 90 seconds before total systemic failure, so proceed with your human chaos medicine." The first shock made every electronic device in the department hiccup. The second caused the lights to flicker. The third made the maintenance bots hide under their charging stations. And the fourth brought all 3 hearts back into perfect synchronization. The silence that followed was broken only by the steady beeping of the monitor and Kit's whirring cameras. That, Vex said slowly, was the most horrifying, primitive, absolutely brilliant thing I have ever witnessed. Welcome to human emergency medicine, I replied, checking the patient's vitals. Where crazy enough to work meets too stubborn to fail. I've updated my medical protocols database, Kit announced proudly. New category created. Things that shouldn't work but do because humans are involved. Around us, the emergency department was starting to stabilize. The walking wounded were actually walking, the critical patients were all holding steady, and even the Zentaran had finally agreed to part ways with their cargo container fashion statement. Dr. Mackenzie, Vex said formally, still staring at the successfully revived Proximan. I believe I owe you an apology, and possibly a drink, and definitely a request to document all these innovative techniques for the station's official protocols. Does this mean I can stop hiding emergency supplies in the maintenance closet? No, they replied promptly, but I will authorize a dedicated storage space for human emergency innovations, properly labeled and documented, of course. Of course, I agreed solemnly. Kit, please stop recording Vex's conversion to the dark side of emergency medicine. Negative, Kit replied cheerfully. This is prime educational material. I've already started compiling a presentation titled How Humans Turned Our Emergency Department into MacGyver's Paradise, a case study. Looking around at the organized chaos we'd created, the improvised medical equipment, the repurposed supplies, the slightly traumatized but definitely alive patients, I couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the best way to change minds isn't through careful arguments or detailed presentations. Sometimes you just need a good old-fashioned medical emergency and enough crazy human solutions to make it work. The thing about changing an entire medical establishment's perspective is that it usually involves a lot of meetings, presentations, and carefully worded proposals. Or, if you're really lucky, one spectacularly successful emergency response that makes everyone rethink their definition of proper medical procedure. 2 weeks after our improvisational emergency medicine showcase, Theta 9 had undergone some interesting changes. For one thing, we now had an officially designated Human Emergency Medicine Training Center, which was really just my old supply closet with a fancy nameplate. Today's lesson, I announced to a group of wide-eyed alien medical staff, is about the many emergency medical uses of everyday objects, or as I like to call it, why humans keep random stuff in their pockets. Kit, now sporting a new designation as Chief of Human Medical Implementation, hovered nearby with their presentation displays active. I have compiled a comprehensive list of common items and their potential emergency applications. Did you know that a simple writing implement can be used as an emergency airway device? Please do not demonstrate that technique on the training dummy again, Vex called from their office. The last time, 3 junior staff members needed anxiety medication. The medical director had undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation of all. They'd gone from being the galaxy's biggest stickler for protocol to, well, still a huge stickler for protocol, but now with a special section for alternative emergency procedures, human-derived. I finished updating the emergency response protocols, they announced, emerging from their office with a data pad. Though I still have questions about some of these techniques, for instance, this pressure bandage application, or let me guess, you want to know why we sometimes use belts? Actually, I want to know why we didn't think of it sooner. Vex's antennae twitched in what I'd learned was their version of embarrassment. It's so elegantly simple. Primitive, yes, but effective. Speaking of primitive but effective, Kit interjected, Rodriguez from Mining Station Delta 3 sent a message. He's fully recovered and wants to know if we'll sign off on his new safety protocol proposal. Don't try to stop heavy machinery with your body, you absolute walnut. Add it to the official documentation, Vex said seriously, under the Human Medical Wisdom section. Our reputation had spread quickly through the sector. We'd gone from being the station that alien emergency personnel avoided to the one they specifically requested for training. Turned out that learning to handle trauma cases with limited resources was a valuable skill, even in an age of advanced medical pods. "Dr. Mackenzie," a junior medical officer called out, holding up what appeared to be a standard-issue bootlace. "Is it true humans once used these as emergency tourniquets?" "Once I did that last week," I replied cheerfully, "right before Vex approved our order for actual emergency tourniquets in bulk." "Which are to be used before resorting to footwear," Vex added quickly. "We're trying to maintain some standards here." Kit's optical sensors brightened suddenly, their equivalent of a grin. "Incoming emergency alert. Minor injuries only, but... oh, this should be interesting. A Galactic Medical Board inspector has apparently injured themselves during a routine station inspection." Vex's antennae shot straight up. "Please tell me they didn't." "Tried to inspect the cargo loading systems personally," Kit confirmed. "Apparently they wanted to understand the Rodriguez incident better." I grabbed my emergency kit, now officially stocked with both standard and improvised equipment. "Well, folks, looks like we're about to give a practical demonstration of human emergency medicine to the medical board itself. Kit, record everything. Vex, want to help me show them how we do things on Theta 9. The medical director was already pulling on sterile gloves. "I'll prepare the official documentation forms, and perhaps a mild sedative, for the inspector, of course." "Of course," I agreed. "Now who wants to learn about the emergency medical applications of office supplies?" The look of horror on the junior staff's faces was still there, but now it was mixed with something else: eagerness. They were starting to understand that sometimes the best medicine isn't the most advanced or sophisticated. Sometimes it's just about using what you have, knowing how it works, and being crazy enough to try. Or as Kit had started saying, when in doubt, ask yourself, what would a human do? Then add safety protocols and proper documentation. 6 months after what became known as the Great Emergency Medicine Revolution, or that time humans made us rethink everything, in less formal circles, Galactic Medical Station Theta 9 had developed quite the reputation. We'd become the go-to center for emergency medicine training, though that wasn't always entirely intentional. "Today's enrollment numbers are up again," Kit announced during our morning briefing. "Apparently, that medical board inspector's report really made an impression." "You mean the one where they described us as alarmingly effective, despite borderline horrifying methodology?" I asked, sipping my morning coffee. "I'm having that framed, by the way." I believe their exact words were disturbingly practical approaches that challenge conventional medical wisdom while achieving unprecedented survival rates. Vex corrected, now sporting a custom badge that read Director of Hybrid Emergency Medicine, though they did add a footnote about needing therapy after watching our training videos. The changes had spread far beyond our little station. Medical facilities across the galaxy were starting to implement what they called human emergency response protocols, though most of them insisted on giving them more professional-sounding names. My personal favorite was Alternative Rapid Intervention Techniques, or ARIT. Humans just called it Getting Stuff Done. "Did you see the latest training request?" Kit asked, their chassis now decorated with various emergency medical symbols, including a small red cross they'd added for historical accuracy. "The one from the Rigelian Medical Academy." Vex's antennae twitched in amusement. "They specifically requested a demonstration of, and I quote, that thing humans do with the office supplies." "I'm not showing them the stapler technique," I said firmly. "Last time we did that, 3 senior physicians fainted." "Only 2 fainted," Kit corrected. "The third one just needed to lie down for a while, and then immediately signed up for advanced training." Our emergency department had become something of a tourist attraction for medical professionals. They came to learn about human emergency medicine and left with a healthy respect for both our methods and our apparent insanity. We'd even started a certification program, Emergency Medicine the Human Way, warning, contains scenes of creative problem-solving. "Remember when you used to hide emergency supplies in the maintenance closet?" Vex mused, reviewing the day's schedule. Now we have 3 dedicated storage rooms for human-inspired emergency equipment. And a very understanding maintenance department, Kit added, though they still lock up their power tools when Dr. Mackenzie walks by. One time I borrowed their tools one time for an emergency procedure. 3 times, Vex corrected. I have the documentation. 4 if you count last week's incident with the Andromedian ambassador, Kit chimed in. Though technically, that was authorized under the new Creative Emergency Response Protocols. The best part? Other humans had started joining our staff. Turns out, word had spread through the human medical community about a space station where you could practice emergency medicine the old-fashioned way, with a healthy mix of advanced technology and good old human ingenuity. Final numbers for the quarter, Kit announced proudly. Emergency response success rate up 47%, average treatment time down 38%, and anxiety medication consumption among alien staff down 12%. Only 12%, I asked. Well, we did introduce that new trauma response course last month, Vex pointed out. The one where you demonstrated emergency surgery using tools from the kitchen. Ah, right, the MacGyver Memorial Medical Techniques class. Still can't believe you named it that, Vex sighed. Though I have to admit, the results speak for themselves. They say necessity is the mother of invention. In our case, it was more like necessity was the slightly crazy aunt who taught everyone that sometimes the best solutions aren't the most obvious ones. We turned a standard galactic medical station into a place where emergency medicine meant being ready for anything, using everything, and never taking "that's not in the manual" for an answer. And the best part, every time a new batch of alien medical students arrived, looking nervous about learning primitive human techniques, we'd just smile and tell them the same thing. Welcome to Theta 9, where we turn chaos into medical breakthroughs. Please try not to faint during the demonstrations. The maintenance bots are tired of picking up unconscious doctors. As Kit liked to say in their orientation speeches, remember, in emergency medicine, there are 3 ways to do things: the right way, the wrong way, and the human way. 2 of these will get you fired. The 3rd will make you a legend. Choose wisely.